Once I capture them, the restraint's the same across the board. So you can use a towel, or if your bird is pretty tame, like I do, you can sort of scratch the back of its head, sneak your fingers around its neck, and then restrain. And the basic restraint hold is like you see here. You're going to take a thumb and an index finger and put around its neck. You're not going to choke him. Birds have complete tracheal rings, so you really can't cut off his air circulation by encircling motion. And that pretty much immobilizes him, and most birds stop struggling at that point. You want to make sure that his back is sort of resting in the palm of your hand to give him some support. You don't want him out here by his neck swinging and flapping. The restraints to keep their wings into their body. And now I have complete control of this bird, I have complete control of the situation, and I can do what I need to do without worrying about him becoming further injured or biting me. My first rule is the vet doesn't get bit. So, we're prepared by knowing what normal is, and now we know how to restrain our bird and capture our bird. There's some supplies we're going to need to be ready for these emergencies. And in summary, you're going to need a hospital cage, a towel, and an Avian restraint for capture and restraint. Of course, a first aid kit. We are talking about first aid. And there's some miscellaneous supplies that I like to add to my first aid kit that we're going to talk about. And you should have all these supplies in a nice container with a lid to keep the dust out, somewhere very convenient and easy to get to. And if you have an emergency and you use some of these supplies, replenish them then, so that the next time there's an emergency, you don't have to run around the house looking for this, looking for that. It's all right there ready to go. It needs to be complete, perches in it, food and water dishes, empty but clean, some paper in the bottom, ready to put a bird into. It's clean, the perches are attached, ready to go. You can also use this cage as a travel cage. If something does happen, you're going to need to go to the vet, it's ready to walk out the door. You don't have to go get the carrier out of the basement, scrub the cat hair out of it, and take it to the vet. So let's look at this in detail. You can use a cage or an aquarium. I kind of use both. We've got a hospital cage here, and we've got a little plastic brooder. I think they call them critter keepers. They're cheap, they work great. You're going to need a heating pad, extension cord, and again, keep all this right there together so that you don't have to go searching for it. And you need some towels. And to set up a hospital cage, for a cage, I put a heating pad so it's on top and down the back, and I cover that with a towel. And the heating pad needs to be turned on high. And you can leave that on 24 hours a day safely, as long as it's not a worn out heating pad. For a brooder or a small aquarium, I put the heating pad under the bottom and up the back. So you can see this one end is heated, and the brooder is pushed against the wall to hold the heating pad in place. And then, of course, we cover with towels to hold the heat in. In the bottom of a cage, as long as you have a grate, you can just use paper. It's really nice to use paper because you're going to need to monitor your bird's droppings to see if he's improving. So wax paper or some kind of non-colored paper, you can monitor these droppings. In a brooder or a cage that doesn't have a grate, I put these little rubber mats in. They're called dry deck. And the dry deck is lifted off of the paper so the poop falls through. Bird isn't constantly walking in it. Keeps it drier and keeps the bird cleaner. You need to make sure there's food and water containers in the cage ready to go. You don't have to run around looking for dishes. And I like having a thermometer around just so you can monitor the temperature. You want a sick or injured bird in 90 to 95 degree temperatures. And most of the time, a good heating pad is going to do that for you if you keep them covered with a towel. So the first aid kit is another really important supply you're going to want to have on hand. There are several commercial first aid kits available, and for the most part, they're pretty good. The things that I think that you need the most out of these, gauze for cleaning off a wound, some Q-tips to apply topical medications, some cotton balls and some alcohol to smooth back the feathers. As everybody knows, you can't wet feathers with water and keep them out of the way. It just repels water. But alcohol will wet the feathers and get the feathers out of your way so you can get down to whatever lesion you're dealing with. Some scissors on hand, mostly to cut open packaging and things like that, but if you have a feather that's loose, you're going to want to snip that off. Some latex gloves usually comes in these kits, and I recommend using those if you're going to apply any topical medications. You don't want to use a bare finger because you're just going to put more bacteria into that wound, so you want to cover your fingers for that. Some betadine or maybe some chlorhexidine scrub to clean wounds with. And it's nice to have some saline or a bottle of eye wash. You can use it to wash foreign material out of eyes. You can use it to flush wounds. But there's some things that, and most kits come with these items, and for the most part, those are the ones I recommend using. But there's some other things that I like to add to my kit to make it a bit more effective. For a bird owner, if you don't have anything else in your house, you need some styptic gel. Because invariably somebody's going to get a broken beak, you're going to clip a toenail too short, you're going to get a blood feather. And these styptic gels tend to work much more effectively. They're sticky, so when you put them on a bleeding wound or a bleeding toenail or beak, it's going to stay there. If you've ever had any experience with those yellow powders, they just don't work. And after opening them a couple of times, the air gets in there and they become little hard bricks. So they're pretty much useless. So I like to use these gels. They come in a little syringe. They're easy to dispense. And there's some theories that these styptic powders could be toxic if ingested. So I'd be concerned about that. Some other things to add to your list. Some tweezers are very nice to pick foreign material from wounds. A pen light, help you see a little better. A metal nail file is very handy to file jagged nail edges or beak tips that have been broken. Some peroxide is good to have on hand. I don't put that on wounds of any kind. It tends to delay healing in wounds. So I use it to clean the blood off of feathers or my shirt, whichever comes first. And it does really work well for that. You should have on hand some kind of antimicrobial cream or spray. A lot of the kits come with an ointment. Just throw that away or use it on your kid or something, but don't put it on your bird. Oily, greasy ointments get smeared into the feathers when they preen, and this oil will prevent the feathers from thermoregulating. They get cold if they're covered in this greasy ointment. And finally, I think you need to have some kind of hydrating formula on hand. I like Cool Bird. It's made for birds. It's got all the electrolytes and minerals and things for sick birds, but other people have used Gatorade and things like that. I'm in a pinch. I'm sure that works fine.
When you use septic gel, doesn't that cauterize the wound where if you had to go in and fix it, you'd have to remove flesh to make the closure?
I would never put a styptic on a wound, like a cut or an abrasion. So that's the first rule. If it's on a nail or a beak, it's going to stop the bleeding, and the excess gel is just going to fall away, or it's going to be licked away, and it's not going to cause any problems down the road to repair whatever was bleeding. But don't put it on an open wound like a laceration or an abrasion.